From CattleCon in San Antonio, I am joined by Rosemary Anderson of Whitman, Nebraska, board chair of the Nebraska Beef Council for this week's Beef Checkoff update. Rosemary, you've been hard at work. Tell us about this week and some of the conversations you've had in your Beef Council meetings.
Well, thanks for having me, Rebel. I'm always excited to talk about the work that the Checkoff is doing. We've just currently are in a Checkoff highlights meeting where we're hearing from a lot of the different contractors for the Checkoff, giving updates on the work that they've done, and then some ideas for their future programming.
Very cool. Well, I know the International Trade Committee is something very near and dear to your heart. Talk about the work that you do, not just this week, but all year long in that space.
Yeah, the International Trade Committee only has one contractor, and that's the U.S. Meat Export Federation. We don't really need any others because they do outstanding work. Next year will be their 50th year of operations. They have staff in 90 locations across the world, and their work generates over $412 per head of slaughtered animal of value, and it's hard to imagine where we would be without that. There are travel opportunities, and there's meetings and constant information. And I'm privileged also to serve in the capacity of the Federation representative on the exec committee for the USMEF, and so that kind of gives me an extra perspective on all the work that they do.
Very cool. Well, obviously the Beef Checkoff has hands in many different buckets. Yesterday there was a session talking about consumer preferences and what the consumer wants today. What are some takeaways that you got from that session?
One of the things that hadn't really crossed my mind until I heard from those people was the popularity of the, let me find my notes, the GLP-1 era is what they're calling it. There's 15% estimated consumers that are using this medication for management of weight loss. And of course, the coupling of that with a high protein diet is a huge opportunity for us in the beef industry to maybe optimize and maximize our exposure into that market.
Certainly. Well, for cattle producers that are back home in Nebraska braving the cold, what are some things you want them to know about the work that you're doing here this week in San Antonio?
Yeah, I feel for everybody at home. I've heard about all the ice that's getting thrown, and I do feel guilty, but it is important that we're here getting together, sharing ideas, networking, and finding ways to really get the most value out of that dollar investment that ranchers and farmers make. And to see the work that these contractors are doing is it's really impressive, especially considering the value of the dollar compared to when it was first passed as a checkoff in 1985. So we're trying our best to be good stewards of that dollar, and we're always open to new opportunities, but we're hard at work trying to make that fly.
Absolutely. Well, as you make those investments, what are some projects that are on the horizon for 2025 or in the years ahead?
Gosh, it sounds like there's a number of things. American Farm Bureau has a lot of really neat STEM programming that's coming online. The impact of that can be enormous, especially as you get into the highly populated areas of the country where maybe those kids don't get the daily exposure to agriculture that we have in Nebraska. And that programming is really important, and it's partially funded by the Checkoff. There's some research going on right now to improve the accuracy of the yield grade equation, and I think that's going to be very important. There hasn't been a lot done since that was first put together in the 1960s, and that work will probably change the way cattle are valued and hopefully add dollars to producers' pockets. Those are a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head.
Awesome. Is there anything we missed that you'd want people to know?
No, just keep doing what you're doing. as producing the best beef in the world, and it's wanted worldwide, and consumers they're looking to add more protein to their diets, so we need to be in a position to give them what they need.
Awesome. Well, once again, that's Rosemary Anderson, board chair of the Nebraska Beef Council. Of course, all of our coverage of CattleCon 2025 is brought to you by the Nebraska Cattlemen. I'm Rebel Saklocha reporting.